to everybody, but generally I'm the boring one out of most of the consultants in the company, so you won't find me too chit-chatty. I'm a bit to the point being factual. What I want to do is I don't want to duplicate what Lucky says, because it doesn't make sense. I'll refer to one comment that was made, the system. And why I say the system is that we have lots of different bits of information that we get bombarded with. To the extent there's lots of information that we wouldn't normally be given in the good old days, because you'd be limited to the type of access to that information. Either you'd have to be a very, very clever economist or analyst for you to try and find that information, or you need to know someone who has that information. Nowadays, because of social media, you have access to lots of different things that would normally be in cloak and dagger. So therefore you have lots of conspiracy theories going on about lots of different things. But I'm not here to qualify them, I'm not here to scare anybody and tell you, the world, is on a doom and gloom or something. But what I am telling you is, very simply, one of the things that we have got going on, and this is why this business model of ours, that's the Rescue My Property, and I can keep the conversation concentric to Rescue My Properties. In this, as in a lot of things, size doesn't matter. Okay, so whether it is 100 representatives strong, or it's a few representatives strong, there's only a few people who've got the sense of humor, so don't relax. A little bit rough, it's probably going over your head. Okay. General question doesn't really make a difference. What makes a difference is that there is a thrust or a movement in a certain direction. Got someone laughing, that's good. Okay. So the point that I make is, my background, so Lucky hasn't given it, and I don't want to bore you, but it's early days, military, midlife, crisis time, into finance and into big projects. So I was sort of working in the city 15, 20 years ago. Generally understand the mechanics of the city, fund management, how it works, how underwriting takes place, how actuaries basically lie to the market regarding values of things. So there's a lot of information there that I could give you now to scare you a little day outside of you, but I'm just want to give you basic facts. Why is Rescue My Property, why is this model of ours so strong? Okay. Unlike in the good old days, when you'd have one part of the economy lopsided, you'd always have another part of it that would recover, would make it sustainable. This is one of the unique times in history, and it's not that it hasn't come before. The reason we are quite clear about where it's going is we've actually taken point of reference from history. So I'm not mystic-led. I don't have some guy working for me in the Bank of England who's letting me know about the intricacies of the way the economy is going. It's literally us using points of historical reference in the financial sector to confirm to people what is going to happen. And what is going to happen means that it hasn't happened yet. So if you feel that the economy in the United Kingdom and the greater world is now recovering and we're the most buoyant economy in the world, well, that's practically myth, and it's spinning at its height. So you've got the political establishment making people feel that things are recovering. And the funny thing is they use humanistic words like feel good factor, or they'll say there is confidence in the market. But these human words are actually being used to prop up a financial system. So if you understand how this works, you'll understand how the overall picture is that they are merely biding time for a structure that's statistically collapsed. Okay? So I don't want to go into details, it gets too high level, and we're all going to get confused. But basically,
fake news.
You can use the word fake. You can actually say fake news as it's being used nowadays is actually confirming when a politician like the governor of the Bank of England or the chancellor comes out and says the economy is looking choppy, then nobody really questions what that means. They just think, oh, it's turbulent. But how can you put the word choppy on a statistical number? It doesn't make sense. But it's in order to give you a feeling like, oh, it's a bad weather storm, it will die away. So they're trying to put pictures or suggestions in your head to keep you feeling confident, so you keep going out there, spending more money with your credit card, and keep thinking there's a purpose of what you're doing. But the underlying factor is, and this is the word I want to use, that all economic cycles are manufactured. Now, if you don't believe it or you don't understand it, I'm not here to convince you. I'm telling you that they are all manufactured, and you will find that evidence not by believing me. Just go back into history, and you will find the word Arab uprising. You will find the word enemy of democracy. All these words were being used back in the early 1900s at the time of the big financial crash, when it was just before the First World War. Okay, you're actually in the Third World War, and again, it's how you look at these things. The Third World War doesn't need one enemy against the whole of the world. It just needs enough momentum to be fighting different wars in different places. And there is one enemy at the moment, and that is Islam, or Islamophobia, or Islamists, all these different terminologies they use. That is the common enemy. So they have created the Third World War, but in a slightly more subtle way, geared around social media, not in a very outwardly, we're taking the war to X, Y, Z, and we're fighting it. Because if you look at it, you've got literally more than 1/3 of the world is actually in warfare. That's African states, Middle East states, Far Eastern states, and the Europeans are the only ones at the moment that seem stable, but that will be a separate turning point. So again, I don't want to go too high level, I want to keep it concentric around the rest of my properties. So the question starts from someone like, sorry, and then it was it? Yanis, right. So starting from someone like Yanis, who says, look, I've got access to deals, and I've got access to buyers and money. So I'm going to slot him in and say to him, he's the left field of rest of my properties, the solution provider. Because remember, there is no fairy godmother of loan to value. Nobody comes along and does that, and all of a sudden, you're in positive equity. It doesn't work. It's a practical matter. The fact is, you have a market that is fundamentally sitting on negative equity. Okay? And this market is a bit like the sea under the quiet storm. So you've got this lovely ripple effect going on top, and people seem to think, well, oh, right, we're cash friendly, we have extra money to play with, all that stuff. But in reality, the real storm, the real problem is beneath the surface, and the beneath the surface is the negative equity trap. So again, focusing on rescuing our properties, why is it? We have at the left extent, we have someone like Yanis, who says, right, I've got money, I've got buyers, and I've got the potential to convert good deals. The right extent of rescuing our properties basically goes to the client, and that is where the business opportunity is. It's just the same as, metaphorically, like he's used heart surgeons and he talks about MOTs in cars. I'll keep it consistent with the write-ups that we've got on the website, on the actual the media clips that we do, and we give an analogy of a recycling plant. Of a person or a company that deals with scrap cars. Now, to the driver, that car's not worth anything. But what we do is we come in, we literally look at all the problems on this vehicle, and we actually sell that vehicle for a value. But in selling the vehicle for a value, there's one party that loses out, and this is the party that is associated with the entire structure, the ones who are manipulating and manufacturing the crash, and that's the banks. This goes back to Millen's suggestion against the system. He says against the system, or trying to take the system on. We're not bastions or agents. We're not saying banks. All we are saying is that the banks do manipulate the situation. They do create poverty. The World Bank is one of the biggest agents for poverty. When you have more than 600, I think, and $50 billion of arms trade going on, and the total extent of humanitarian aid programs is less than 200 billion, then you can obviously understand, is war being created for an ulterior motive, or is war itself a manifestation of two countries that don't want to get on? So my point is very simple: rescue my properties. Right extent is the problem, left extent is the solution. So going from right to left, the problem is where the business opportunity comes in. For somebody like so what was your name? Susie. Right. Someone like Susie, who's in a job, wants to make extra revenue, or wishes to break away from the job and actually be self-employed, technically, making good money. Then the question is, you're on the right extent. So you are sitting where the problem is. The problem being, how do you convert the problem into money? And remember that the problem is not properties. Properties are not bad things. Properties themselves do not, haven't collapsed. So if you buy a property and you put it on rent and you collect rentals, that's a simple solution. That's the business model. It's not properties that are bad. It is the financial instruments that have leveraged finance against the properties that have created the problem. So negative equity isn't about property. Remember this. The solution, what you would like to get into, is not about property. You don't need to become a property expert overnight. You just have to be a good human. And this is what I say to lots of seminars or presentations that I do go to, that this solution is leased from property. It's got nothing to do with property. If it was to do with property, then I would say go to do a property course, go and become an architectural surveyor, become an engineer, so you can actually qualify the cost of a property or the value of a property. That's not the solution. The solution is understanding humans. 99% of the people who come to us have or had or came into property because of aspiration. They were trying to become financially free. That's not a bad thing to do. I would not point a finger at anybody anywhere around the world who's come into property because they wanted to become financially free. Because most of these people are fathers or grandparents or would-be fathers who are trying to make a life for themselves so they don't have to be caught up in that 9-to-5 trap. So the purposes or the reasons for these people coming to properties were never negative. They were aspirational. The reasons that they wanted to buy property was because property itself is a good thing as long as you know how to buy property at the right value. The problem goes back to that same thing I mentioned at the beginning, that these problems have been manufactured. They've not sprung up by pure coincidence. And they were manufactured by the banking system that wanted to sell you three-legged horses, that wanted to give you finance for those three-legged horses, so they could actually buy their offshore properties and be sipping pina coladas while you guys now are burdened with debt. And that is where the fraud is in this matter. Goes back to the system. So the system's created the mess. You have people who are sitting on 10, 20, 30. I mean, the average client that comes to us in consultation normally is anywhere between 5 property to 15 property strong. And these people are sitting on an average, anything between 20 to 30,000 pounds worth of negative debt. Do the mathematics. How many people in this country have access to about £500,000 worth of cash to pay off that negative debt? Not many. Most of them have used the money from their property to bolster up their lifestyle. So a better car, children to private school, probably buying a house, which is one step up from where they were. But now, because of the valuations, all those properties, not just their buy-to-let properties, but their personal residential homes are sitting on negative, if not break even. So your solution, getting into rest of my properties and actually trying to understand how this works, is about understanding human nature, understanding the reasons these people came into property, why were they so interested in coming to property, and then realizing that their dream or their aspirations have been shattered, but then getting them to realize that the sooner they withdraw from the illusion of debt, the illusion of the dream that they now can't satisfy, that is when you have to get on the winning side. So this solution and making money out of the problem has nothing to do with property. If you think it's about property, then you haven't understood the solution. The solution is understanding people, nature, and trying to get from them an understanding that this dream, this illusion that's underpinned with negative financial debt is literally an illusion. And I'll give you examples of clients. We've been doing this 10 years. We've come in, a man who's got 3 children, who's literally crying in front of us, telling us that this is what he's got, this is what the problem is, and afraid to open the letters that are coming through to his back door because he fears debt collection or bailiffs. So how do you understand the effects of debt on a person? How do you reconcile that? The only way you can reconcile is actually understand the person. So I'm just giving you very, very basic tips as to understanding you have a potential of making a lot of money, but you really have to understand it's not about property, it's about understanding people and aspirations. Now, why do we say it's bigger than PPI and the MP expenses standard? Because there's lots of legal matters within property that lots of the average person doesn't understand. Again, I can become very boring telling about the legal aspects of it, but I'll keep that off the menu today. All I'm doing is I'm reinforcing both scopes, both scales. So the right extent, just for the people who've turned up, the right extent being the problem, and where the actual opportunity comes to people who want to become consultants. The left extent is, like our gentleman Yanis, the solution. And the solution in property in this present time, the juncture of history, has nothing to do with being able to call in the fairy godmother of loan to value, because there isn't any fairy. There's no Christmas, Father Christmas, unless anybody's going to break down and start crying now, but no Father Christmas. But there are people who believe in Father Christmas, and there's no fairy godmother of loan to value. There's only one solution. Sorry, but that's the way it is. There's only one solution, and that is cash buyers and access to funds to be able to acquire the bad debt. And there is where we have a unique position, where we have 10 years of experience of dealing with the banks, debt settlement, we call it. The banks sometimes call it negative equity negotiations. They don't like that word, so they use short sale. That's another word they've come up with nowadays. So they don't want to hear negative debt and negative negotiations, or anything that shows that they've reduced or negotiated down debt. So they like to call it, debt consolidation or any other word but negative words. So that's where our unique position comes into it. That we've been doing it 10 years, so we know how to deal with the banks. And remember, the banks. I'll leave you with the last quote, and that is a famous American politician and mover and shaker said that you give me access, or you allow me the controls to a nation's exchequer, and I care not who the lawmakers are. And these words may sound very unrealistic or very sort of abstract, but in reality, this is exactly what the banking system does. It controls everything you do. It controls the way you walk, what you wear, how you spend. It controls everything, but the difference is it's not unbeatable, it's not unquantifiable. There's quantity in what they do. The difference is in being able to withdraw yourself from the system, one of the reasons, Lucky, I mean, his introduction gave the fact that he is a prime example of any of these clients you'll be meeting. Was worth more than 70 million plus, and more than 100 properties, went through bankruptcy, went through the system. So it's not like we're talking about people who are third party to, we're talking about people who work in the organisation, who've gone through the structure, gone through the system, who've actually faced all these hardships that people who come to you technically will be. So not many people in property nowadays are buoyant. Most people we know, and this is a question I pose to lots of property management companies, is that they don't even know if all their clients are solvent. Means if they went to their client, Mr. X, who's got 7 properties with them, and they said to Mr. X, please can you give me a total account of your pluses and minuses. Like most of the clients who come to us, they are probably sitting on negative debt. They're sitting on negative debt, technically they are bankrupt. That's what insolvency is. You cannot afford to pay all the money that you owe. Therefore, we've got cases of people who own 30 properties who went to PC World, and because PC World used a particular credit scoring company, couldn't get a laptop on credit. Now, somebody cash flowing £20,000 a month, you'd expect them to be able to buy a laptop on credit. But the credit referencing agency that is used by PC World basically refused them a laptop. And the real reason for that is quite genuine. Somebody came to me telling me, right, can you give me £2,000? I'll give you £2,000. If I knew they were sitting on £500,000 of negative debt, he's not going to be able to service that £2,000. Bottom line, very factual position. So the message today, if you want to take it away from me, I don't try to portion a lot of my seminars or presentations or lectures with big numbers and things to scare you. I try to keep it very, very in the middle of the road so that everyone understands what I'm saying, but it also comes in with factual presentations as well. So the facts I'm telling you are that you are sitting on a manufactured crash, so the economy hasn't crashed and it's not recovered. This is spin. Second part of it is that the crash is going to be humongous. So you're talking about trillions of pounds of negative debt. Someone talked about how, one of you asked about endowment policies, is that right? Or how a lot of people who have got interest-based mortgages only, how they're going to satisfy that mortgage at the end of the period. I can tell you now, unless you've got a fairy godmother of interest, or you've got a fairy godmother of a endowment policy that you didn't take out, and she will get you returns within a few years of your interest payment completing, you're basically stuffed. That's literally, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it, 2 years ago, BBC, for BBC to come out openly and give this information to the public, 1 million homeowners in this country are sitting on interest-only mortgages for which they do not have a vehicle to satisfy the redemption at the end of the period. That is a very, very, very big admission for BBC to make, because BBC are government, and they're telling you if you haven't got the money, well, as soon as the interest rates go up, you guys, and what happened straight after that was you had a major shift of lots of people changing their mortgage packages. Those who had creditworthiness, so the ones who had creditworthiness, who could do it, they actually changed from interest only to a flexi account. And I don't know if you guys know about the flexi account. It allows you to flip from a repayment into an interest and then back into a repayment, and basically whenever the interest rates go up. So they had that 2 years ago, so they know the extent of the damage. But mentally,
whether you can afford to.
But no, just suppose there's 1 million people out there who couldn't afford to pay a mortgage at the end of term. They made the announcement, just scared everybody. All of a sudden, those who could afford it and had creditworthiness changed the mortgage account into a flexi account or into a fixed only. Right? So done that. So all of a sudden, they know interest rates go up, we're not going to get affected. Or if the interest rates go up, we can switch the mortgage into a repayment one, making it bearable. So those statistics are available now. In 2 years, everyone that had to do something has done it. So you're left with maybe 600,000, maybe half of that stat is there in government. So they know when they pull the interest rate burn, the extent of the damage, how many people are going to end up homeless, how many people are going to end up defaulting in their mortgage, etc., etc. There's lots of stats I can give you. I don't want to overwhelm. I want to keep it very simple. And that is left extent. The honest type of person. If you've got interest, you know you've got properties, or you've got people who would like to buy property, they've got cash and they're ready. That's where you can make money. And the right extent. Again, I'm sorry, I'm very bad. Susie. Is somebody who wants to get into solving the problem but make money out of the problem. And remember, this money that you're making out of the problem is insignificant in the sense that you have there's such a humongous gap of people out there. This is going to affect every street, every postcode in the country, because so many people have invested into property. It's a big economic indicator of the United Kingdom. Every economy has its own indicators. UK and property is one of the foundational, and in the last 10 years, when all of a sudden buy-to-let property has become hot investment pools, you've 10 times that amount of investment into property by the average person. So the average person that we've met in the last 10 years has anything between 5 and 50. And these people haven't seriously gone out and bought lots of properties, they've just casually been buying 1 or 2 every month or 1 or 2 every year. And they're sitting on an average of 250 to £500,000 of negative debt. So that's my bit. I don't want to bore you any further than that. I'm 10 minutes. Pardon? Go ahead, 10 minutes. Okay. In 10 minutes, ask me a question. Tell me something that's flipped in your mind since I've been talking to you that you think you want an answer for. Anybody?
Speak exactly like my friend. The one word that the bank will suck the money of the people on the bank account.
And this is not conspiracy. Please don't think this, because the proof is in front of you. And if anybody thinks it's not there or the economy is recovered, what is the difference between the Chancellor and yourself with your name for Rushman? What's the difference between him and the Chancellor of Exchequer? Is there any reason that he has any right to be giving you information that Rushman doesn't have? It's just that they've bought into the system.
The normal people will participate with the rest of the bank. Starting from £1,000 in Italy, 1,000 euro more.
Yeah.
100,000, sorry, but now they want to come in down. It means that will affect deposit and
everything else.
I've been there to finance tax. I've actually joined the company.
Yeah.
I've been lucky selling. I've talked to Lucky 11 times as high as many person.
Yeah.
They know what they're talking in a different situation.
Yeah.
From bankruptcy, other people not having money. Did you know that you can pay your mortgage daily? The bank said you pay it monthly. You can pay daily. I negotiated this with Halifax and Mortgage Express.
Right, so you can pay your mortgage
Do
daily.
you understand all the
I would say don't pay your mortgage. I would say to you now, 80% of mortgages, again, it's legal stuff, but I want to bore you guys. 80% of mortgages were most likely illegal. They don't actually, you don't even owe the money to the banks because of securitization. Lots of people don't realize that. If you go into your land registry entry and you check who the first chargee is, it may still be HSBC or Mortgage Express, but in real terms, they actually sold the entire debt on this issue of Freddie Mac of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Security and what's it? They call them something else in the US. They call them what's it now? They've got a terminology for high risk mortgages, and they were sold on. Legally, the bank was obliged to inform you, change the title deed on the registry, and tell you your mortgage actually is no longer there because we've used it to make more money. They didn't tell you. So technically, 80% of mortgages are probably illegal. So I would say, daily paying your mortgage, why would you want to pay a mortgage?
20%.
I understand with all of that, as a mortgage broker, they used to give 100% mortgages, income up to 7 or 8 times, and the 25% unsecured loan. And people like GMAC couldn't rock. I mean,
I'm just saying this is all you're confirming is the whole mess was manufactured. And the people who've actually made money out of it are the guys who manufactured it. Their banksters, as you want, they've got terminology you use. They are genuinely fraudsters, banksters. But we're not here to try and change a system that's so old and so big that arguing about the World Bank creating, poverty and war, and that's not our capacity. Our capacity is to do what we can at our level, and our level is common man. And the problem is so big that dealing with the common man will itself create an impact. This is what the message is. We're not trying to tell people that we're going to, bring down the Bank of England. That's not what we're trying to do. We're saying your friend, your colleague, your sister, your boyfriend, and your best friend. Oh, you want to boyfriend in the real terminology. You don't have to. Boyfriend is a boyfriend. You don't have to be having sex with him. So a boyfriend means. Just to take the connotation away, that boyfriend is a good term, a good friend. But what I'm trying to make to you is a good friend is someone who's going to be affected by this, and you can't fix the world. Yeah, so what I'm saying is you can't affect the world structure, but you can help the person next door to you. And because the problem is going to be so pandemic, it's going to be bigger than you can imagine. You have more than enough work to do, even if you were just going to do it in your locality. That's the beauty of this solution for the people who want to become consultants. You don't need, £500, you're in business. And even that, if I was in your capacity, I'd even do it the basic £50, get in, and then just understand the system, and then ask for accreditation after you've done about 5-10 cases where you've made money back. So you're actually becoming a franchisee with the money you've made. You won't even have to put your own money in. So there's so many clever ways of doing that, yeah?
Then you've got 5 minutes because
Good,
you
thanks, Rob.
made it X-rated.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. No, I cut that out from the video. Okay, any other questions? Yeah,
So what I was going to ask you, so what's happening in Europe with all these landlords that are now putting their properties into companies and trying to revalue them more than the actual bricks and mortar value, saying, yeah, my business is giving me this much return a year, and give me commercial finance 10 times that.
Okay, you're talking about people. Okay, it goes back to the simple matter. You've got a structure, a system, yeah. But ultimately, you weren't here, but I started off by saying a lot of the stuff that they throw in the financial market are human terms, like the economy is choppy or there's confidence in the market. Okay, so the answer to your question is the people who are doing overvaluations and getting money out and putting into companies. Wherever there's people, there is corruption. Okay? Because people want to make money. In a market that's actually nowhere, it's totally lost. Somehow, somebody is going to do you a favor. Some surveyor is going to say, don't worry about it.
There's not surveyors, it's more
Don't worry
commercial
about it.
finance.
Huh?
It's more commercial, what people are
No, I'm trying to give you the principles of what you're talking about is, you're saying overvaluation, putting them in the company, saying they're worth more. They're not. That's exactly what happened at the grand scale. That's why you've got so much out there of people's misery who can't afford to pay their credit card bills anymore because that cash flow isn't there anymore. Okay? And even if the cash flow is there because interest rates are low, that bubble's going to burst as soon as you have central. Remember, everyone, what? I'm giving you a bit of advice. What's the Central American bond market? Because Mr. Trump has been brought in as a village idiot to basically create the reason for the central bond market to up the interest rates, and as soon as that happens, the rest of the world is going to actually catch the cold as well. So to answer your question is, humans, greed, I want to make money, the market's collapsed, we're not doing 100 deals anymore. Actually, don't worry about it. They are,
let's do it.
That's the answer. You're talking about humans, aren't you? The reason you've got greed is humans. If it was all automated, you wouldn't have any of this. You would have had it properly, documented. You wouldn't have fraud going on in the bank. You wouldn't have people overvaluing. You wouldn't have surveyors playing with the bankers to take money out of property. You wouldn't have that with you. These are all human things, aren't they? Any other question? Difficult one. So,
How we can save our keep safe our saving in the bank.
Okay, this is a question that comes up with people who are somewhat cash flow fluid. They've not been greedy in the market, and they have got something that they're worth saving.
Apparently safe, but it's not.
Right. Okay. Unfortunately, until you don't replace the banks and you want to go back into gold bullion, or you want to go back into camels or whatever it was that was done before this, you're bound by putting money cash into the bank. The way to spread risk, I'll give you a very, very high level understanding of the way the big players do it. Break it down into 3 portions: 1 commodity, 1 foreign exchange of any kind, and 1 into real estate. Assets, yeah. You can be cars, you can be anything, but I'm saying real estate is probably more, and as long as you buy at the right price. So spread that risk. Because every aspect, remember, this hasn't come into the open market, even precious metals, gold bullion, silver, platinum, this was also has been manipulated by the banks. So if they bought 1 billion of it, they said it's worth 2 billion, they did it on purpose to keep their balance sheets looking good. Reality, there's going to be a crash on that as well. So people are all of a sudden going to realize, whoops, you know, it wasn't worth that much, it's not worth that much anymore. So that's the question you ask is genuine. How do you address the problem in common? In the old days, you would address the problem first, so the illness would be addressed, negative equity, problematic debt problems, and then you would go to getting a solution that would fix your ongoing work. In this market, when you talk about trying to beat the system, like Dylan says, you go to fix the consolidation first, the good bits of your assets or your money. So if you've got cash reserves, put them into certain trusts. If you've got assets, put them into certain vehicles that are going to protect you from unnecessary creditors. And then you pull the plug on the bad news. So it is, you could call it, if you want to call it playing the system, then you are effectively protecting yourself. You're making your castle first, and then you then let go of all the bad news. That's my advice to you. Basic one, if you have things you want to fix or protect.
Okay.
Yeah,
Not personal.
No, I understand. Broadly.
This is more complicated.
But broadly, that's what we say to people now. Any questions?
I've got a question. You know, the cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, how reliable and how credible are they? I mean, it's
That's the future. It's not reliable. It's going to become where the entire money will go. They will literally pull the plug on. Look, the only reason they got checkbooks is because of old age pensioners. As soon as the last old age pensioner crosses the line, everyone will be electronic. It'll be all internet-based trading. So you won't have money physically printed. You won't have checkbooks anymore. Yeah. So EBIT is the future. So it is reliable. It's the future.
Talking about this cryptocurrency, I continue. They have a testing system running the villages for years.
Yeah.
And now it seems that people are even doing property transactions, taking money from the UK with this cryptocurrency
That's
on the drive. You can go to another country, buy the property, there's no direct link.
That's it. But
The idea
that's
is
the
to
future.
pay to solve this problem, but they can't do it.
Okay, any questions? I'm bored of one now.
When's the crash coming?
When's the crash coming? Okay, I'll tell you honestly. I was talking about the crash 2006, 7. I think I don't know if you still got the CD. We gave a presentation to KPMG, HSBC, and Simmons. And if you listen to my presentation then, you would say I'm Mr. Meg, but I'm not Mr. Meg. I'm just looking at points of history. Everything I said then is actually happening now. That was 7 years ago?
7 years ago.
7 years ago. So I predicted 2014 was when they were going to pull the interest rates. What happened is the banks did so, but the central bank has kept the interest rates low. And the reason for that is they're still hopeful of somehow capital gain and capital recovery. Hasn't happened. I would say now you're definitely in the next 6 months to 1 year interest rates. So it's not really a matter of collapsing, the interest rates going up. They'll do it under the guise of the economy's recovered, we've got to make money. A sweet shop can't operate at 1/4%. I mean, do you know the sweet shop here that's going to be making a 1/4%, profit? Central bank is not going to be able to survive. Especially the reason you've got to understand it affects you internationally is once I've borrowed, I'm a country bank here, Bank of England, you're the country bank for Italy, you borrowed me money, I borrowed, that's what they call the bond market, that's borrowing on in an international platform. If you put up the interest rates when you're borrowing, you're the central bank of, which is the federal bank in America, I have to pay you that money back. I can't do it. I'm not going to sell my assets as a government. I'm going to say, who do we screw for that money?
You put your
Public.
interest rates on.
Pardon?
You would put your interest rates
So I'm going to screw the public. But that's what I'm paid to do, screw the public. I will do that.
There is a problem with the bank. I mean, the money are not property of the people, the property of the bank, the money.
Yeah.
The bank's supposed to be served to the people. That's why all.
No, idealistic thinking, perfect.
The third world is the bank.
You're right, but the problem is the bank is being controlled by money, and money is the root of all evil, and evil is a different topic. Any other questions? Anything?
One last question and then
It's
finish.
a bit of, so are you advising if you have properties now to sell?
Right. If
Only
you
if
have
it's
properties now and you have a problem with the property, then even if you sell, you're actually taking the bull by the horns. That's what we say. A lot of the solution is about taking a property. It's not about sitting there waiting for the banks to tell you. It's about you saying, I'm going to sell, and that's my negative debt. Okay, how do you propose me to pay this? So it's about affirmative action. If you have assets that have got value in them, you are going to get your maximum yield out of it now. The equity you get now, because they've made out the property market's recovered, the money you get now is worth more than you will get later on, because when the market crashes, if you've got 100,000 there, it's going to shrink to like 50,000. So I would say to you, yes, it's the best time to offload to get that equity out, and then cash is king. So when the market crashes, you buy the same asset for half the value, if not less than that. You can buy two for the price of one. Simple. Does that make sense? Okay, that's my answer to you. Any other questions?
I think, keep it there.
Benjamin, you're awake? Because you're the one who keeps sleeping. Are you happy, satisfied? Okay, so now, that's it. Thank you very much.